Referee conspiracies, blowouts, halftime shows, all good, all fun, and compelling. The better three words are pitchers and catchers, and maybe the better three words are Guardians are acquiring.
Tanner Bagger, the Guardians, and you're listening to Locked On Guardians.
You are Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Spring training starts this week. We are back to 5 days a week on Locked On Guardians and all across Locked On MLB channels. And we'll start off first up. The Guardians, do they have one more move? And who could it be on today's show? Before we get into all of that good, fun stuff to start off 5 day a week episodes again. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. The offseason is pretty much over, but maybe there's still something the Guardians could do. Maybe there's something that we've heard about in the past, we've thought about in the past, that maybe might come back around. I don't know, Jeff. I think it's worth talking about to see if there might still be a fit. Because if we know there's one thing in baseball, especially the Guardians, is that trades sometimes they take a little while to develop.
I'm going to say no. I'll just be the wet blanket on all of it. No, it's not happening. They're done. All their additions will be guys. You're like, I thought this guy is dead. And then someone will have to say, cross him off the list.
Cross him off the list.
Yeah. But for those who do not know me, I am Jeff Ellis. I talk about people who died and crossing them off lists. No, I guess actually I talk about baseball here at Scouting 24/7 before that and national format. And for whatever reason, when they wanted to talk baseball and over here, they brought me on Locked On, and I'm approaching 6 years sitting in this chair. Hard to believe.
Yeah, it's pretty good. It's been a fun 6 years. I'm Justin Latta. I have been covering the Guardians minor league system for quite some time now, going back to 2007. Every year, I'm always reinvigorated by spring training. I don't know. Our inside joke on the show is that Jeff hates spring training and I love it. And there's different reasons why I love it and Jeff hates it. So it might be more relevant this year. But I've been covering the Guardians for quite a while in the minor league system. Former the editor-in-chief at Guardians/Indians Baseball Insider. Over the News Herald, the Morning Journal, which I'll be picking up more stuff again here soon as spring training picks up. Over at Prospects Live and next year in Cleveland.substack.com. So, Jeff, the one thing we have been kind of hearing for a while, we've heard this from a couple different people, and there's been some chatter in the past. The White Sox. The White Sox aren't doing anything interesting. The Cubs have been pretty heavily linked to Alex Bregman over the last few weeks, and to be honest, I feel like Alex Bregman's asking for a lot for a guy who didn't have a great year last year, who
really
has a qualifying offer. Yeah, the qualifying offer. He's 31. He's asking for a large contract, and by and large, Scott Boras has done better by his clients this offseason than he did a year ago. But Bregman's out there and still struggling. Right now, though, the Cubs seem to be the most heavily linked to him, and I don't know what's going to end up there. But a lot of people are starting to feel like the Cubs is where he's going to end up. They traded Isaac Paredes over the offseason, and they traded who was the other hitter they drafted? Cam Smith, who's a future third baseman. Yeah. They traded him. So I know they're waiting on Matt Shaw, but if they sign Bregman, there's a guy who might be forced out that we've heard connected to the Guardians in the past, and that name is one Nico Hoerner. And we've heard a lot of chatter about this guy over the last, year, 6 months. I'm trying to think how far back this really goes. But like I said, if there's one thing we know about trades is that, especially when involving the Guardians, is that, these things take time. The Guardians have had guys in the past they've acquired that they were trying to acquire for a while. And this could be another case. I think Nico Hoerner absolutely could make sense for the Guardians if Alex Bregman ends up on the Cubs. We just have to talk about why it makes sense. But I think the real question is there really a fit? Are the Cubs really going to trade Nico Hoerner if they sign Alex Bregman? This still has to be a chain reaction of things, but will they actually do it is the question.
Well, there's a few points. First one, I'll say the one thing we know about Boris recently, to go back to your earlier statement, is he's not good with guys who have warts. The players who've had warts for him have really kind of failed in free agency. Pete Alonso, the situation is still that's not what Alonso turned down a chance of more money. We've seen a lot of guys do this, and Bregman is unfortunately a player for himself where he peaked quite a few years ago. So what we're seeing now is if the Cubs were to sign him, he's still a good player, don't get me wrong. You can be good without being, a star, without being an MVP candidate anymore. I think they'd have to trade Hoerner. First of all, just monetarily. Hoerner makes, 11 million, which is reasonable, but this was a team that, by reports was already kind of up against it. When they added Ryan Presley and a few others, they weren't in the market for some of the relievers because they had kind of limited room. So if they go out and add another player, it just makes too much sense for them to then flip Hoerner to save a little bit of that money. I think they have to make some moves to help get the money down at that point, especially when you have Matt Shaw in-house, right? They have a guy who can step in. It'd be one thing if they didn't have anyone, but in this specific setting. And the one other thing I'll throw in is, maybe you're hearing it from other places. The caveat I will say is, yes, we've been hearing about the Guardians and Hoerner since last May. But I will say every single time I've heard it come up, it's a Cubs-based source. I've never heard anything that is a Cleveland-based source on it so far. It has been, so it feels like sometimes like maybe it's something that I don't know if it's bouncing through various people there or what the story with it is. He makes sense. He's essentially National League Andrés Giménez. Giménez has had higher highs and he's been a little more consistent, but defensive capabilities, I would say second best defensive second baseman in baseball. Chases a ton, runs well. Bat is the weakest part. He's about as close as you get, and a little more expensive salary wise than Giménez is this year, but he's also, I believe, in the last year of his current contract. I could be wrong. So it's a rental. And I guess it comes down to, I feel like a lot of people in our comments won't like this idea. I feel like a lot of people are just ready to let the young kids play, but he gives you cost certainty. And I know some people did not like when I was a big fan of adding Ha-Sung Kim, but again, I'm about cost certainty. There is no guarantee right now that Brito is going to hit at the big league level. I know you have to try to see if someone can do it, but there's some warts in that game. I'm not certain that Rocchio is going to be a league average bat. There's wart. Give me cost certainty sometimes. I am a big believer in that.
Yeah, the cost certainly makes sense. And like you said, this is a guy who I don't want to say he's National League Andrés Giménez, because Andrés Giménez, I hate that. I don't want to devalue the guy. I really don't want to. He's a platinum glove defender. He's one of the best players in terms of defense at second base. He had one good offensive year. The rest of the years he's been around have been below league average offensively. So as much as I don't want to denigrate the guy, and obviously, great character, right in the clubhouse, well liked, and he added value on the bases. Don't get me wrong, he added value on the bases too. He was a good runner.
A lot.
Yeah,
he was 89th percentile or 95th percentile in base running last year. I believe he's higher than Giménez.
But Nico Hoerner for his career has a 102 WRC plus. He has not had a WRC plus below 100 since he became a full-time player in 2022. He was above 100 in 2021. His first 44. He had a 44 game stint there, and since then he's played over 135 games or more each year, and he's been an above league average hitter each year, in addition to being a great defender. If Andrés Giménez had WRC pluses of 106, 108, 104, 103, he would still probably be a Cleveland Guardian right now.
Agreed.
Because he was already cheaper and locked up long term, unlike Hoerner, who
cheaper for 1 year.
For 1 year, but you're getting But yeah, it was cost certainty and already a platinum glove defender. And if you're getting above league average defense, that's an incredibly valuable player. Hoerner's only got 2 years left in this deal. And I will say the one thing should say about Hoerner too is that he is coming off of a shoulder surgery. So that is a something to think about when looking at this. But I'd say he's an upgrade over Giménez. He's just more consistent offensively, and he does a lot of things the Guardians like. Yes, he's not going to give you power. Neither was Ha-Seong Kim, and really neither was Andrés Giménez. Power wasn't part of his game. But Hoerner's best year, he had 10 homers and 20 steals and a 108 WRC plus. And the last 2 years, he's had over 30 steals. He had 40 steals 2 years ago. So he's a more consistent player than Giménez, and he gives you a little bit of runway in terms of offense. And your young guys having, like you said, a little more cost certainty, a little more performance certainty. Let's talk about next what it would take to get Nico Hoerner. What kind of trade, if he really is on the block, it would take for the Guardians to land him. We will discuss that next. When the game tips off, NBA action is just getting started. We are almost the halfway point of the NBA season. No better place to get in on it than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game. You can even, if you missed the opening tip-off, you want to bet in the fourth quarter comeback, you can do that. Staying on the action. If you're looking for a bigger payout, you can find all your live bets with a same-game parlay. I was just checking out FanDuel before, looking at what the Guardians' win total odds were, and was the over-under right now is 82.5. And, you know, I think I would have what the over-under was last year. And, you know, I think they ended up going on the over on that. So you can, you know, be risky and take the over on that if you want. 82.5. I feel like 82.5 is, or above 82.5 is reasonable for the Guardians, but we'll keep checking that. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more. FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NBA. The other thing with Nico Hoerner, too, and the Cubs, like I want to talk about this, too, is I think there is something there in terms of, you know, you did say it's come from all Cubs sources. I will say I did have a conversation with someone the other day who is not like a full-time reporter. It's, you know, kind of similar to what we do, not necessarily with Locked On. Was a non-Cleveland, non-Chicago based media person. There is a connection there. I mean, I maybe we overblow this, but, you know, Carter Hawkins and is the GM over there.
They haven't made a lot of those trades, though, right? Like, it's like there was not a lot. Like, was there a trade with Toronto before the Giménez trade? Like, we keep expecting them to make trades with their former front office, but they haven't made two. They haven't made many.
Yeah, they've made two, and they've already made one with the Cubs and the Eli Morgan deal. So that's already happened. And like I said, these things take time. We've heard some of these rumors going back to May, at least of this year. So, you know, these things do take time to develop on occasion. And maybe the Cubs didn't feel like they were going to be in the Alex Bregman hunt this offseason. I don't know. Maybe they traded for, it was kind of a surprise last year, and they traded for Isaac Paredes. So maybe they felt like that was going to be the way to go. And then they found out they had a chance to get a guy like Kyle Tucker, who obviously is much more valuable, and they can reunite him with Alex Bregman. And honestly, that's a great fit for them, because you put Bregman at third, you have Swanson at short. You can move Matt Shaw to second, where he's probably a little bit better off.
Yeah.
So
because his arm's not great.
And like you said, I mean, let's be clear. The Cubs don't have to clear the money. They're the Cubs. They shouldn't have to do any of that. But we know, based on how they operate and how a lot of teams operate, they do. I know a lot of people are probably saying, well, why would the Guardians trade for him? Because they're not spending any money either. I think if they go out and get Hoerner, he still fits within their where their budget is right now. I mean, he's averaging $11.5 million. What's his contract right now?
$11.5 million this year, 12 next.
Yeah, I mean, you can always flip him too if you want to in the offseason.
And I just want to point out something else, just for fans who are not super familiar with him. Like, I know some people are like, we're nothing but numbers people, but it's like, if you go over to Savant, and it's like last year Giménez had a plus 14 value with his defense, plus 1 value with his base running, and negative 15 with his offense. Hoerner was plus 5 for base running, plus 8 for defense, and 5 as a positive as a hitter. So you are taking a defensive downgrade, but it's I think this is a guy
not by much.
No, he's a top 3 defender at the position. I don't think that's up for debate. He is a better base runner, a more consistent base runner. Like I said, it is just kind of funny because, like, both of them are guys who chase a lot and don't have good bat speed. But the one thing he does that Giménez does not do is he squares up. And He whiffs a little less. He's a Guardians guy in that regard. Like doesn't whiff, doesn't strike out. A lot of putting it in play. Both of
It's
these
a
guys.
similar profile
Yeah.
to Stephen Kwan. He doesn't
Yeah.
get on base as much as Kwan does.
No,
but
because he
it's a
doesn't
similar
walk as
profile to
much.
Kwan.
But it's like,
Yeah.
no hard hits, no exit velocity, no barreling the ball. But that's Kwan, that's Giménez, that's Hoerner. Now saying that, again, this is a guy who still has managed to be a league average bat. And I agree. If Giménez kept his defense and was a little bit better, like I feel like his base running also value-wise has regressed the past few years, but that wasn't as big of a deal. It's just the cratering of his offensive value. But yeah, it's weird because not only has Giménez gone backwards as a hitter, he's gone backwards as a base runner. So we've seen him, and I feel like it's maybe a combination of factors that make Cleveland more trying to get out of there before he became a $23 million man. With Hoerner, he is owed $23 million total these next 2 years. So it's a bit of a difference than Giménez, who was going to make that in year 3. And it does come down to a cost. And the Cubs, I just can't see them paying to keep him. Is my stance.
Bregman, right?
Yeah, I just can't see that happening when you got Shaw ready to go, when you've got some other young guys. And it gives them a chance to help recoup some prospects, because the Cubs traded, really good prospects for 1 year of Kyle Tucker, who could walk. Like, let's be honest. Like, if Tucker had been healthy all of last year, I think he would have been third in the MVP. That's how good he was before he got hurt. So the Cubs are in I don't want to say a precarious situation. They have some good depth. They have a good minor leagues, but if, they need to go a variety of different ways, it just makes too much sense. And we know that like I said, this Hoerner's name keeps coming up. And a year ago, I'm like, oh, I don't know. Like, it didn't make any sense because his arm isn't good enough for anywhere but second. Let's be honest. And he's barely played short. So he didn't make sense when they still had Giménez. That's why I thought it was a weird thing when people brought it up to us in the summer. Now, I mean, yeah, I don't have much faith in Gabby right now. I got to be perfectly honest. So in Juan, like, he's really interesting, but again, I don't know.
So we talked about what it's going to take to get Nico Hoerner, and we could talk about too if like how much sense it makes in terms of where this team fits. Because I think you're right. Like, there is a contingency for playing Juan Brito, for Angel Martinez. Those are the only two guys I really feel excited about at second base going into spring training. Like, I don't necessarily think there is anybody else, and I'd rather see Martinez keep getting chances in the outfield. So I think it makes more sense for him to find a way to impact the team in the outfield, and because the thing is, Brito can't play anywhere else. Like, they've put him at first, they put him in the outfield, and really it's I mean, he could play, I don't know, maybe he plays left, but he's really better suited as a second base DH. I thought it was hilarious, by the way. I think, was there who had the write up that Juan Brito was
Keith Law.
potentially yeah, he's the only guy I've ever seen say that Juan Brito is a good defender at second. I'm like, even the Guardians, remember after the Giménez trade, we talked to them about Juan Brito in the press conference, and they basically said Juan is most comfortable at second base. They didn't say he's good at second. They didn't say, well, that's where he's best at. They said that's where he's most comfortable. Like, they didn't go out of their way to say, oh, he's a good defender. They usually do praise those guys.
I think it's like, my concern with him is just like, he was awesome at home, and then he was average on the road. And that is my one concern with throwing Brito out there. It's like, he hit great in the place that was hitter friendly, and then he's going to move to a park that is not hitter friendly at all. And that's why I'm all for, like, certainty. Like, I'm not, like, Brito is probably like 6th or 7th in my rankings. Like, he is definitely in tier 2. But, like, I'm still not sold that this
team could use it. This team could use some consistency and some proven offense. So, what have we been hearing about cost for Nico Hoerner? We don't have anything definitive, obviously. Nobody does. But the kind of conversations we've heard that we could talk about at least are a comp pick for one, which the Guardians do have the extra comp pick they got from Arizona in the Josh Naylor trade. So there's that, or their own, whatever ends up being the more valuable piece here. And then there was talk of some sort of major league pitching option. And not necessarily like an established guy, but someone, major league ready. The Cubs still do need some starting pitching. And it's probably not, Cleveland's probably not in a real great place to be giving away a lot of options there, because right now you're still talking about Tristan McKenzie or Joey Cantillo or Slade Ciccone grabbing that number 5 spot. So Cleveland by far doesn't have a
I
whole
also
lot of
heard
wiggle room as
relief
Logan
help
Allen.
at various times.
There is that too. No, I'm saying Major League
Yeah.
pitching could be any form of starters or relievers. I mean, we've thrown out Hunter Gaddis as one of them.
I mean, that feels rich for that situation.
For Hoerner,
Yeah,
Compic,
I mean,
and Hunter Gaddis. I
I
agree.
mean, I
It's
think
a little
Hunter
bit
Gaddis
rich.
straight up is rich for him. It's 2 years of control versus 5 of a guy who had a sub-2 ERA last year. Like,
yeah, but for a guy like you said, a guy who's pretty affordable and is very certain and very effective. I think it's fair, especially considering Gaddis is a reliever. And you also have to bake in the fact, too, with Gaddis. Like, I understand we think he had a great year last year. You also have to bake in the fact that there's no guarantees he repeats what he did a year ago. We like what he did, but there's a lot of teams who might think that, okay, well, he's not exactly proven. It was one good year. And it was a great year. I mean, he had one bad weekend, and the rest of the year he was fantastic. But with relievers, things are volatile, as we know, and then he pitched late in the year last year. So there's not a 100% guarantee that Gaddis has a year like that next year. So maybe it's better to cash in on that. And the Cubs.
When you look at even like Giménez, where apparently Toronto was liked having extra control, it's like that netted a guy some viewed as a platoon first baseman and a 5th round pick. Like, that's not huge value. Like, Hoerner, Gleyber Torres in free agency got $15 million, and he's not as good as Hoerner, but still, like, it speaks to like the overall position. It's weird. Like, I just don't think they can get big pieces for it. It's hard to get big pieces for a guy with 0 power.
It is, yeah, for sure. You're right. I think there's something to that, but I don't know. Like, it's not like you're trading Manuel Clase or Cade Smith. Like, Hunter Gaddis was fantastic a year ago. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying.
It's too much control. Like, guys with his control just don't move.
Yeah. Okay. Would you rather be trading a Joey Cantillo and a comp pick for Nico Hoerner?
I don't even know if it's a comp pick. Like, to me, with the way it's gone, and especially like if you go and you look at Gaddis's Savant page, it's like that's not something you want to give up on a whim. Like, that is everything being near elite. It's like, to me, it's Franco Alemán and then another ceiling prospect.
See, I don't think that gets it done. I think it takes more than that to get Nico. I mean, unless you're concerned, and the Guardians, we know, are steadfast with value. They hold their ground on value. Personally, to me, I feel like it probably takes more than Franco Alemán. I mean, the thing I've heard from 2 different people now is they want someone who at least is major league ready pitching wise, and I don't know. Franco Alemán, I guess, is sort of major league ready, but like we both know he's got issues to work on, and there's a reason they have gone out and gotten the Seawald and have added other guys through. They put an end right on the 40, and they've gotten other guys through minor league free agency because we know that they're not sold on Alemán being ready as an option this year necessarily. So I don't know. I don't think that does enough. I don't think if I'm the Cubs, I wouldn't do it for Alemán and the comp pick. I think we're looking at maybe a Doug Nikhazy or.
I mean, I give him Nick Daisy and Alemán. I mean, I don't care. Those guys are matters. Like, if they want Nick Daisy, all the more power to you.
But you're going against your own argument then, Jeff. You always say for it to work for both teams, it has to hurt. You're not acting like that's going to hurt.
No, I know. But Gaddis's numbers are too good for a guy who your best case is essentially like 4-win player, maybe a little bit better. Like, best case, who's also coming off of shoulder surgery. Like,
all right, that's the only caveat is a shoulder surgery. All right, we'll keep debating this in a second. We'll talk about trade fits and if it makes sense, and we'll also talk about how this would cap off the offseason too before we get out of here on this episode of Locked On Guardians. Before we get into that, appreciate you guys making Locked On Guardians your first listen today and every day, wherever you get podcasts. We would appreciate, by the way, if you are here at this point of the discussion, if you are subscribed or if you hit the bell so that way you never miss an episode. We are about 200 people away from a 4K subscriber, so we'd love to get to 4K before the season starts. And if you're not yet, join Be an Insider with the rest of our fans and our listeners. You can sign up to Be an Insider with the link on your screen or in the episode description. Actually, we already had this discussion with some of our insiders last week when we heard some of the Alex Bregman rumors popping up with the Cubs. So we were already texting with our insiders about this. So this is just an extension of that conversation. If you want to be part of that, sign up. It's in the episode description. We'd love to have you. We are giving all of our insiders bonus content. We are doing one episode a month of just kind of leftover topics that we didn't get to. Some of it is Guardians related. Some of it's just MLB or even prospects or draft related stuff. And then we're also doing a subscriber only mailbag too once a month. So you get 2 bonus episodes a month at the very least, depending on whether stuff comes up, any kind of written content we might do, anything else bonus wise. A couple weeks ago, we hosted a subscriber only video chat, which was a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun doing that. And we'll be doing that periodically as well. So one of the benefits you get for being an insider. So check that out if you are so inclined as the season gets going. Yeah, I to go back to the trade, I really feel like it has to hurt for both teams. You're saying at best a 4-1 player. I mean,
it's also like all of his comps are really bad too. Is part of my like. If you go to Baseball Reference, his third most similar batter through age 27 is Mark Lewis. D'Angelo Giménez, like people like it's also not the best aging profile. Now he is, it's not like he's super old, but he is 27. Will be 28 and 29 for these 2 years. And you're talking about a guy whose contact and speed coming off an elbow injury.
Would you or would you not feel better about this team with Nico Hoerner in the lineup?
I would, but I wouldn't. If you're saying, would I rather have Juan Brito and Hunter Gaddis? Yes, I'd rather do that. 100%. Like that, I don't even have any debate.
But you said a while ago that you aren't necessarily sold on Juan Brito that much.
Yeah, but I'm also not sold 100% on. There is a cost certainty, a player performance.
You can't have both ways.
I know, but I would rather. I am more sold on.
Eat it too.
No, that's not what I'm saying at all. I'm saying that I think Gaddis plus Brito. I feel more comfortable with than paying 5 years of control with a guy after the year. You don't trade a guy after the year that Gaddis had willy-nilly for 2 years of a soft hitting defensive specialist who, does a lot of nice things, but just does nice things. You don't trade that. That's how you end up looking really poor in a few years.
Unless you don't believe that what Gaddis did last year is repeatable.
Yeah, but I mean,
I'm not saying it is. I'm not saying it isn't. I'm just saying if you believe.
And I also don't believe in trading a guy with 5 years of cost control in general for a guy with 2 years of cost control.
I wouldn't do it for Cade Smith. I wouldn't do it for Emmanuel Clase, but I don't know. I'm not saying I don't
know. Like I would consider Gaddis for like a Taylor Ward because he can impact you a little bit more offensively. You're trading here more for speed and defense and offensive impact. And yes, he should be league average because that's what he's good about doing. And that's fine. I know, but I'm saying they have some options. Like to me, I am not going out of my way for a guy with this profile.
Who is more likely to be an above league average hitter in 2025? Is it Nico Hoerner or Juan Brito?
I mean, it's a silly question. We know what the is based on performance.
And how many times last year, Jeff, did we say, "Well, we'd take anything close to 100"? This lineup.
But that's not what we're saying. We're saying you have to trade a guy who was your 8th or 7th inning guy to get there, who has 5 years of control. That's what I'm saying. It'd be foolish to do.
Would it hurt to trade Cantillo in the pick?
It would, but I mean, I wouldn't do that either, though. I think that's a gross overpay, but that's just me.
I don't think it is. I
don't think he is that good. He is a guy who is like on that. He is a guy who is, like I said, if you can get a good price on him, I'm all for him because he does raise your floor a bit, but he doesn't raise your floor that much.
Yeah, he's not adding power. I mean, you're essentially adding a consistent version of Andrés Giménez is what you're doing back to the offense. And
he doesn't give you what you need, what you don't have. He just gives you more of what you have, which is, he doesn't lift, he doesn't pay, he's speed. It is cost certainty. Like I said, I 100%, like I am all for cost certainty, but I'm not going to go and pay a high price. Like giving up a draft pick and like a valuable pitching prospect, a valuable pitcher. No, like pitching is too valuable. We spent this whole offseason watching them add pitching because it's impossible to get. It's expensive to get. They can't go out and sign it. They're never going to get it in free agency. So they have to develop it. You can't give up pitching if you're this team. You can't give up potential high-end pitching. You can give up Eli Morgan because Eli Morgan, we know, is not high-end. Cantillo has a chance to be a mid-rotation starter. That's too much. Hunter Gaddis has a chance to be an all-star closer. That's too much. You can't give up high-end pitching, not in this market. Alex Cobb got $16 million.
I don't think we talked about that at all. We just talked about that. All right. I mean, so you're saying you're only comfortable giving up like a Franco Alomar in a pick.
I mean, like pieces. Like if you can put together some other stuff, like if you have to. Let me look at the roster. It's
but you're saying that doesn't hurt, Jeff. The trade has to hurt both teams.
He is not good enough to make me want to do a trade that hurts. He's just not for me.
So what trade to you makes sense for both teams? Like I'm saying, I'm maybe not Gaddis. I would consider Cantillo and Akazi or Ryan Webb. Maybe not necessarily Ryan. I think Ryan Webb gets it done, but also part of me also wonders too. Like, I'm not saying this is the case, but I thought it was interesting that they signed Kobe Allard and Vince Velasquez, and then we started hearing, some more possibility of this coming back around. Like, I thought the timing was interesting on that as well.
I mean, they were going to bring guys into camp, and
I know, but I don't know. I just thought it was interesting timing that came up. I mean, I don't think I give up Logan Allen just because I still think there's a chance that works out.
I mean, I'm willing to talk Logan Allen.
So, no on Cantillo, but yes on Logan Allen.
Because there's more ceiling, more growth.
Yeah, maybe, but there's also a chance that neither of them throws enough strikes.
Oh, 100%.
So I know.
I don't know. It's like,
I'm definitely not moving. I don't think they flip Ciccone at this point. No, Ciccone. That felt very targeted, yes. But I could also see. I don't know. Would the Cubs consider Tristan McKenzie as a guy? Like he's not really a certainty, obviously, for anybody.
No, I don't see why anyone would want him right now.
I don't think there's any value.
And I'm not willing to move Herron either after the year Herron had and all the outlying stats with him look phenomenal. I don't think Sabrowski is something that moves the needle on the other side of things.
No,
so it's just that situation. Like I'm not willing to. There is a world where Juan Brito is more valuable next year than Nico Hoerner, even with Brito having terrible defense. With Hoerner's elbow and then shoulder issue, was that he had surgery on his shoulder, but he was also out due to his elbow, so he had multiple issues.
I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry. It was just the elbow. It was
okay, but with
just the elbow.
No, he's pretty consistent. Like he's more likely than not going to be better than Brito because he has the base running. The Brito, he's fine, but he's nothing like he's not going to bring base running value, let's be honest. And he's not going to bring defensive value. So like there is that cost certainty, which I'm all for, but I have a hard time. What's the value at like a guy who is, I don't know. It's straight. Like, I don't know, like on paper to me, even after saying all this, it's like, to me, Hoerner should be more valuable than Giménez. And I just don't think I'm willing to pay it because Giménez, is going to be 26 million the next 2 years as opposed to 23 for Hoerner while doing more than Hoerner does. So it's like, I don't know. I guess I'm just not willing to, if he's on a song, if they like some of those lesser pieces, I always say you can't trade 3 lesser pieces to get something. So I don't know. I don't know what makes sense, but I also don't feel comfortable with as much as this team's going to rely on the pen and how impossible it is to add guys who have, to me, like, maybe not elite pitching, but like can be a back end arm or could be a number 3 or better starter.
I mean, that's essentially describing Cantillo yeah, that could be where he is. I don't know. I think
I'm willing to talk in Cantillo, but it's like, I don't know. Cantillo's still in my top. Is he still in my top 10 prospects? He doesn't qualify anymore. So, right. He can't qualify.
No, I think, I don't think I think he's still a prospect. He didn't,
okay.
If you go by, if you're going by, if he exhausted his rookie eligibility, then no, he's still a prospect. He didn't wear out his rookie eligibility.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. Like, it's just hard, right? It's hard to find a middle ground. It feels like almost anything hurts.
I don't know. I like the idea. I would consider. I mean, obviously, I don't want to overpay, but I think that it would be a win for the Guardians to add a guy like Nico Hoerner. Yeah, he's, like you said, he's not giving you anything you don't have, but he essentially replaces Giménez. He gives you some certainty. You got 2 years there. I know, I guess you worry about the elbow injury and all that, but they're going to need to be better on the bases this year. Like they didn't do a great job of base running a year ago. They're going to have to make up for that for lack of power. You definitely get that from Hoerner. He doesn't strike out. I think he just makes the lineup just a little bit deeper, and then you're not forced to go with guys that are unproven like Brito and Martinez. You can move Martinez to the outfield. You can make Brito a smash down the door, and Hoerner's not blocking anybody. Like, yeah, Brito's good and all, and maybe Brito's got to play in April because Hoerner's still recovering from the elbow. I don't know, but they try to move Brito to their positions anyway, so maybe that these things always work themselves out too with that kind of stuff. But you're not blocking Bazana and all that kind of stuff. Hoerner, I know he hasn't really played a ton of shortstop, and the arm is kind of iffy, but you get some.
The arm's really iffy.
I mean, he was a 0 above average last year at shortstop. The year before it was a 1.
He played 10 games. Average. Wasn't much. He's got a pretty low weighted arm.
It was 73 innings last year. He played 137 innings at shortstop in 2023. In 2022, the shortstop, he played over 1,000 innings. He was plus 13 outs above average, so he can do it. He can.
It's a very shaky arm. It's a very, very shaky arm for that position.
Metrics, but Jeff, the metrics say he was a good defender at shortstop.
They say he's a good defender, but they also tell you his arm is below average for, especially coming off that. The other thing I'll say too is this is a guy for his career who has had a 93 WRC plus outside of Wrigley. 111 at Wrigley and a 93 outside. It is a hitter's park.
Interesting. And I did sit there today too that the wind tunnel thing in Cleveland was debunked. I don't know. Okay. Well, let us know in the comments what you think about Nico Hoerner. How would this impact the Guardians offseason? Would you feel better about it? Would you?
I know Cubs fans will tell me that there's no way that we're getting him without paying a high cost, and I'm just not willing. Like I think he's good. I understand that. I'm not willing to pay a high cost for a guy like him. That's where my stance is.
Yeah, I think we have different ideas of what a high cost is. Like, I know relief pitching and controllable pitching is very valuable, but there is a little bit of value in the certainty of Hoerner and trying to shore up your offense or your lineup as best you can, considering you're not going to go and spend that money. Like, you're not going to go and get a Nico Hoerner in free agency for $10 million either. You realize that, right? Like, if Nico Hoerner was a free agent today, you wouldn't get him for the price he is right now. You wouldn't.
I mean,
it costs more.
Not that much more though.
I know.
I know Hassan Kim is hurt, but Hassan Kim is like 10% better than him and got that money while hurt. We've seen other guys. It's Hassan Kim is a better player. He's got a better arm. He's played multiple positions. He gets on base. He's a much.
Hoerner has played short too and very well. The metrics,
but he doesn't. The metrics say his arm is weak. He has been known for a not great arm from the minute he came out of Stanford.
I don't know. I think they're very similar players.
His arm strength was 8th percentile for second baseman last year at 75.6. It's not.
Well, surely it'll get better with elbow surgery. Right?
Yeah. So it's like
it'll definitely get better.
Yeah.
All right. Let us know in the comments what you think. What you think if
we didn't agree for once. That people appreciate when that happens. So
yeah. With spring training coming this week, we will get into some spring training storylines tomorrow. We'll have some prospect talk this week. At the end of the week, we're going to talk some draft stuff. I know, because college baseball starts Friday, so we'll have a couple of solo episodes this week just due to scheduling and just wanting to preserve our time heading into the regular season. But we have a full 5-episode week for you starting this week, going all the way into December. So we've made it through the doldrums in some ways, I guess. We're still going to be, grabbing for things to talk about as we get into the deeper parts of February and before spring training starts. But we will have spring training storylines for you tomorrow. We'll have some draft stuff at the end of the week with college baseball starting. A lot of fun stuff to talk about. Baseball season is finally here. I know it doesn't feel like it in Ohio, but it's here, and hopefully a little bit more trade talk and a little bit of spring training talk will warm you all up like it did us today. And you're muted, Jeff. Way to go. You were muted.
Well, hey, I'm going to restart this video here. I was muted, so you guys didn't have to hear my coughing. I was being polite. I want to thank you all for joining us. Remember to rate and review, hit that thumbs up, subscribe if you are not. We appreciate each and every one of you, all of our everydayers and everyone commenting. Thank you all, and go Guardians, go.